Right. Perfect. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Thank you for joining us today for our DAYC refresher training. This one, we're going to try to do it every 3 months or so, but really just take an opportunity to answer any of your questions, for you to share any tips or tricks that have been working for you or that you find useful that you want to share with others. Um, Paola and I have been meeting individually with some of you to go over the DAYC reports, and provide you some feedback on your DAYC reports on how to make them better, and then also just how to fix some of the corrections that service coordinators may be reaching out to ask you for. So that's what today's training is really going to focus on, is on how to make our DAYC reports a little bit better and just how to correct some of those mistakes. So we're going to get started, and if at any moment you have any questions, please feel free to unmute yourself and you can go ahead and ask. All right. So tips for completing the DAYC assessment on time. Um, so I hear this often about how it takes a lot of time to get the DAYC completed. So how can we work on that? So starting early, as soon as you know that you have a report, whether it's an annual or a periodic that's going to be due, starting to prepare for it. Especially with the holidays coming up, if you're going on vacation or you know your family's going to be going on vacation, making sure that we're planning for that as well. So setting those reminders and planning ahead. Not sure how everyone stays organized, but maybe using a calendar, writing down those dates. That way, at the beginning of the month, you can kind of take a look and see how many you're going to have due, and then start preparing from there. And then making sure that we are submitting those reports to the service coordinator 30 days prior to the end of the authorization, just to give everybody enough time to get everything completed. Another tip is creating an ongoing log of the child's skills. So as you are working with a child, starting to write down some of those skills that you know we're looking for in the DAYC. So let's say that you are working with Johnny and you see that Johnny is starting to point. So whenever you show him those two options, he's starting to point to the one that he wants. So you could write that down, that in July 5th, he started choosing between two of those objects. And then maybe in August, he started now doing it on his own, with less prompting. And then maybe in September, he started to say Wawa for water, Google for juice. So again, writing those things down. And then let's say that now in October, you're going to start working on getting your DAYC completed. You can go back in your notes and say, okay, perfect. He's already doing this. He says Wawa for water. He has, a word for drink. So typing all of that in your report, it's going to be a less less work when you are completing the daily report, because you're going to have a lot of that information and those examples ready to go for you as well. Planning for potential delays. So like I was mentioning earlier, the holidays are coming up. So that is when families start to go on vacation, or maybe they cancel sessions because they have family in town or they're going out of town, or maybe even us as providers, we may not be available. So again, planning for those delays. If a family lets you know that they're going to be out, maybe starting to work on your DAYC report a little bit earlier. And then being proactive as well, with maybe families that you know have given you a hard time in the past with collecting signatures, or maybe they don't respond as quickly to acknowledge that you have reviewed the DAYC report with them. Again, working with them a little bit earlier to give you enough time. That way, we're not rushing at the end trying to get things submitted, or having to contact them saying, like, I need this now because it's due today. So again, just really planning for those delays. And then family engagement. So again, we should always be reviewing our DAYC report with the families. However, there are some families that maybe aren't responding to us, or especially if we have sessions at the daycare. So really making sure that we are scheduling at least one session per quarter to take place with the family participating. Worst case, if they joined through like a Teams call or a Zoom call, but making sure that they are participating and using that as an opportunity to capture your signature as well. And then just setting those clear expectations from the very beginning. So as soon as you start with the family, letting them know that we follow a coaching model and we really rely on that parent and caregiver involvement. Even though the sessions may be taking place at the daycare, we still want that parent involvement because we want the caregivers to be able to consistently use all of the strategies, regardless if they are at home, if they're at daycare, if they're out in the community. So really setting those clear expectations from the very beginning. That way, when it's time for you to go over your DAYC report and get your signature, it doesn't come as such a surprise to the family because they know from the very beginning that they're expected to be participating and we need them to be involved. Again, using this opportunity during these sessions to go over the DAYC report with the family and collecting their signature. And then overall, just making sure that the parent is involved and engaged and in agreement with the recommendations that we're making as well. All right, so now we're going to break down the DAYC report and go over each of those sections. So the first section that we're going to be going over is section 1, which is identifying information. So this section right here where it has the child's name, the date of birth, service coordinator, agency, your name, if it's a periodic, an annual, or an exit. So with this area, making sure that we are using the most updated template. The last edits were made back in July of 2025, and you can find this date at the bottom of your DAYC template. So if you take a look at your DAYC template and you don't see this date at the bottom, that means you're not using the most updated one. So we really want to make sure that we are using this one. If you don't have it, please email your agency or you can email myself or Paola and we will get it to you. But also making sure that we are filling out all of those boxes as well. So having the child's name, the date of birth, the service coordinator, your name, really making sure that all of that is filled out. All right, so now we'll look at section 2, which is the assessment details. So this little box right here. And similar to that first box, just double checking that everything is filled out accurately and it reflects the most current information for the child. All right, so now we're going to look at section 3, which are functional areas. This is a really big part of our DAYC report, which is this part right here, where it is that we are writing our observations and then recommendations for next steps as well. So the biggest recommendation that we have been providing in this area is for you to write this out in your own words. So what does that mean? That means not copying directly from the DAYC manual. So instead of saying child does while playing with peers, explain what does that mean? Maybe it means that the parent reports that child goes up to other kids at the park and asks to play with them, or child stays away from kids at the park and tends to play by himself. So again, in your own words, explaining the child, giving more of those examples so that when the parent reads the report or the service coordinator reads the report or whoever it is that is reading the report, we're able to get a better understanding of the child and of their skills. At the end of the day, you work with them directly, so you know them a little bit better than anybody else who would just be reading the DAYC report.
If I can add something, Stephanie, so
Of course.
in that part, always ask yourself, like, let's say, for example, in the part of communication, right? Ask yourself, how does this child communicate? And write that, okay? Because maybe the child is crying to request to get what he wants, or using only gestures, but that's not added into that section. You really want to make sure that, okay, how is this child communicating? That's included there. And also, talking about the communication domain. Now, the other thing too is to remember that in that section, you put your observations, but you can also put parent report. So if parent reported this, and that, you stated that like that. Okay, parent reports that fulanito is doing this, this, and that. So it's your observations, what you've observed, but also that information that you gather from the caregiver. It's important that's there.
Perfect. Thank you, Paola. And yes, asking
I
yourself, oh,
sorry to
go ahead.
interrupt. I have a little confused over there because I have my name is Carolina Cuevenares. Sorry, I have to interrupt you. I have a little situation there because sometimes what you see and what the parent describe is different. So in order to be aware with the real information, you have to be very delicate in the way that you approach to the parent. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because no, he always communicated, and you see, just he just grabbed for the hands of the mom in order to show her. So there's not oral communication, and when you try to say that to the mom, they act like they disagree. You got
Mm-hmm.
me?
Yeah, but what you can do there, Carolina, is you can put, parent reports that the child uses the following words to, to request. However, provider has observed the child to mainly use or grab the parent's hand to ask for what they want. So you're putting their information, but you're also putting what you have observed. So you're not just ignoring what they're saying, but you are acknowledging it, but you're also sharing your observation.
Yeah, because that particular case, she repeating like a pieces of that dialogue for like cartoons. So she's talking like, "I like the water. I like the water." I'm just grabbing the mom, so it's confused. The mom say, "No, she's asking me for water," which is actually no. She's repeating. Like it's very particular situation. But I know
Mm-hmm.
what you say, and I would do it like that. I will put what
Mm-hmm.
I where the mother described, and I will put my point of view. Just to
Yes.
okay. Sorry. Thank you.
No, no, that was a great question. Thank you for sharing. Perfect. And kind of going back to what Paola was mentioning about asking yourself, how is a child communicating? Doing that for all of those five areas of development, so how is a child socializing? How are they communicating? How are they moving? How are they doing things for themselves? How are they engaging with items in their environment? So asking yourself those questions and in your own words, writing that out in your DAYC report. That way, it's a lot more family friendly, it's easier to understand, and it's more individualized for the child. So when we start adding those examples in there, we shouldn't have DAYC reports that are similar to each other. So if we're reading two DAYC reports for two kids who have pretty similar functioning, they still shouldn't be the same because we're using those examples in there of, what it is that they're doing, what it is that they're saying, what it is that they enjoy to do. So even though they're functioning pretty similarly, those data reports should be different because of those examples that we're adding in there for them. So again, using that clear family-friendly language. So avoid using clinical or technical words. So instead of saying the child vocalizes using vowel and consonant sounds, we would be saying something along the lines of child uses simple words like mama when he wants food, or you know, mill for milk, or up to be picked up. So again, adding those examples, that's going to be easy for anyone to really understand versus using more of that clinical words that maybe we would be able to understand, but a family wouldn't. Ensuring that the scores are accurate and complete. So in the DAYC report, there are two areas where we are reporting the scores. So we are reporting the scores on the right-hand side of where it is that we're writing those observations. If there is a delay indicated by that score, making sure that we are checking off that appropriate box. So if for social, my child would have scored a 68, that shows that there is a delay, so I would make sure to check off that box. If in communication the child scored an 89, that doesn't show that there's a delay, so I would not be checking off that box. And then we are also recording the score in the visual chart. So making sure that the scores in both of these areas match with each other. So if I am documenting a 68 in social on the right-hand side, making sure that I'm also documenting a 68 in the social for the visual chart. That's one of the mistakes that we sometimes find, where one area shows one score and then a different area shows a different score. So we're having to email you to get the correct score. So just taking that time to double check that your scores in both areas match up. All right, so now we're going to be looking at section 4, which is the outcome section. This is another big part of the DAYC report. So this section right here. All right. So the biggest recommendation that we have when creating your DAYC report is to pull up the most recent IFSP. So if the IFSP was from the initial or from the last annual, making sure that you are pulling it up. That way we can compare with that copy. So making sure that your outcome meets that quality standard, making sure that it is measurable, that it's something that's observable, and that it's meaningful to the family as well. We want to make sure that we're working on things that the family wants to work on. The outcome should be consistent, meaning that it is identical to what appears on the IFSP. However, if the IFSP has an outcome that is not measurable, it's not observable, it's not functional, it's not meaningful, then we need to modify that. So if it needs a small change, we are going to select let's make adjustments and then make that small change to the outcome. If the outcome needs a lot of changes, or you just prefer to start over, you can mark that outcome as no longer needed and reintroduce a new outcome that is now functional and measurable. I know that this part gets a little tricky, so I tried to make it a little easier. So I'll show you all the visual that I created shortly. But also just ensuring that we are avoiding combining domains. So for example, avoiding combining motor and communication. So instead of saying Johnny is going to start to climb up the stairs and use words to ask for things that he wants, we're combining that motor and communication. So we should have one outcome that just focuses on the motor and then one outcome that just focuses on that communication. And then when we are reporting on the outcome status, making sure that we are only selecting one of those boxes. So we are only selecting we did it, or we are making progress, or let's make adjustments, or no longer needed, or postponed. We shouldn't have more than one box checked off. All right, so if we are continuing an outcome, meaning that we are making progress or we're making adjustments, making sure that we are introducing new strategies. Don't just recycle the same ones. You know, the purpose of the IFSP is for us to provide that support to the families. So making sure that we are providing updated strategies for them to continue that progress. And then also updating the 3 and 6 month goals as well, again, to reflect that progress. You know, if we have already worked on this goal for 6 months, now it's going on, you know, we probably aren't going to be working on having Johnny, you know, be provided 2 options and choosing one. We're probably already past that because we've now been working on this for 6 months. So again, modifying those 3 and 6 months to take into consideration the skills of where Johnny is or the child is in that moment. All right, so this is kind of the breakdown that I did to help make it a little bit understandable with modifying or when we need to modify the outcome. So if your outcome on your IFSP is functional and measurable, so if we're matching what is listed on the most recent IFSP and we're going to continue working on it, then you're going to select we are making progress. You're not going to change anything because your outcome is already good. We're still going to work on it. So just we're making progress and then make your changes to the strategies and your goals. But let's say that your outcome on the IFSP is not functional and it is not measurable, and it requires just a small adjustment. Maybe it says, you know, Johnny is going to work on his communication, and you're going to modify it to say Johnny is going to work on his communication by starting to use simple words and gestures to ask for those things that he wants. Then we're going to select let's make adjustments, and you're going to update that outcome. But let's say that the outcome is just not measurable, not functional, and it needs more changes, then I would recommend selecting no longer needed and introducing a new outcome that is now functional and measurable. Any questions with this? I know that sometimes this gets a little tricky to understand. All right.
Sorry, Maria Quintana, Gaby Quintana. When you
Yeah.
have a new one, a completely new one, what's the option? We make a new one, so like no longer needed because
Hmm.
we're gonna do a new one.
Yes, correct.
Okay,
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So yeah, so if your outcome, let's say it was just an outcome that said we're going to work on communication and you're like, oh, I'm just going to create a whole new one, just mark it as no longer needed and then just introduce your new functional and measurable
Oh, he
outcome.
already met that goal, so we're gonna move on to the next one. Okay.
Yeah,
So no
that's your
longer needed, and I put a new one. Okay, awesome.
yes,
Thank you. Thank you.
of course. All right, so now we're going to talk about section 5, so recommendations for those new outcomes. So this area right here where we are now going to be introducing something new. So maybe he met the previous outcome and now we're adding something else. Or maybe now there's a new concern. Maybe we were only focusing on communication and now we were going to focus on motor. Or we are just recreating to make a new functional outcome. So in this area, we are going to, what I just mentioned, when we are going to be introducing a new outcome, and then also if we are recommending a consult, making sure that there is a related outcome. So for example, if we are having a speech consult, we need to make sure that we have a speech related outcome. If we are making the recommendation for a PT consult, we need to have a PT related outcome. So making sure that we always have an outcome that relates to the consult that we are recommending.
I have a question over there.
Yes, of course.
If the patient, if the mother, sorry, patient, if the kid, and the mom is asking for more sessions, so like
Mhm.
more, like I need you to see 2 times a week, and we consider that that person really is getting better with the coaching and all the strategies. Do we put that there, or how we do that?
We'll get to it right now. That will be the next section.
Okay.
So let me finish up this slide and then we'll get to it. And then I think that will answer your question.
All right. Thank you.
Of course, of course. So again, with this area, with the new outcomes, making sure that we are filling everything out. So we're adding what that outcome is, what the related functional area is. We're adding that 3 and 6 month progress strategies, and then who's going to be working on it as well. So whether it's the caregiver, it's us, we'll be adding that in. All right, so now let's talk about these recommendations. All right, so we're looking at section 6. So the biggest recommendation in this area, when you are working on creating your DAYC report, you have the opportunity to modify the recommendations, whether that means adding or removing. So adjust the recommendations based on the child and the family's current needs. So if we are going to be adding or removing consults as appropriate, as well as adjusting the frequency and intensity based on that progress. So if we are going to be increasing an existing ITDS service, so let's say, for example, right now I see Johnny 1 time a week, but we are seeing some challenges. Maybe now he is going to daycare and there's a bit more adjustment that's taking place and we're seeing some regression, whatever the case is. But as a provider, I feel that it is better for us to provide services 2 times a week. I need to now submit that increase for recommended services form to my service coordinator, explaining the reason why I am making this recommendation. To answer your question, let's say, I'm not sure this is what your question was, but if we think that the child is doing well and the family is like, no, I want more. Talking to the family about like, hey, like I understand you want more. However, you guys are doing great. You know, you are doing really great by implementing these strategies. Johnny is doing great because now, you know, 4 or 5 months ago, he was only pointing, and look, now he's pointing and starting to use more of these words. So again, having those conversations with parents, I feel as parents, we always want the best for our children, and we forget that progress, or maybe we're just having slow progress, and we think it's not enough. So just going over that with the parents and showing them, and with the DAYC report, again, because you're using those examples of the child, you're able to show the parents that there is progress that is being done. Maybe for the parent, they don't realize that, Johnny pointing to what it is that he wants, or saying for water, that is progress, that is communication. So again, just showing the parents, giving them those examples and showing them like we are making progress, you are doing great. If you feel that increasing services is going to be beneficial and we have that justification, then we would just have to fill out that form to increase those recommended services and submit it to your service coordinator. Did that answer your question?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I got the point, but in case supposedly that we really think that he needed, I
Mhm.
do my recommendation service letter, and then someone approve, and then I put it in the DAYC, or I just go ahead and put it in the DAYC. I imagine that someone have to say yes, no?
You can put it there in the DAYC, Gabby, because remember what you're putting there, the service coordinator has to review it before putting it in the actual IFSP document. So you can add it there and
Okay.
then submit the documentation for the justification, right? To add or increase the ITDS services. So yes, go ahead and add it there and
Uh-huh.
submit it with that justification.
Okay, good.
Okay.
And then you decide yes or no, and then we will go
Exactly.
ahead in the
Yeah, and then
IFS.
when you get the IFSP, the current IFSP, back to you, you'll see there the service page if it was authorized or not.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Um, if the child is qualifying by clinical opinion and the scores are high, consider reducing the frequency, especially if the child is progressing and the family is doing great of implementing those strategies. So let's say that I meet with Johnny 1 time a week, but he is doing really great. Mom and dad are doing great of implementing the strategies. However, he just needs a little bit more of that. Little bit more of that support. That's why we're continuing using clinical opinion. Maybe I'm going to have that conversation with the caregivers and say, again, explaining what the progress is, letting them know that they are all doing great, and asking if they would be okay with, going down from having ITDS visits 1 time a week to maybe every other week or 1 time a month. So again, when you are creating your DAYC report, you have that opportunity to make those modifications to the services and the intensity of services. Again, just making sure that we are communicating with the family, because at the end they need to sign everything, and then the service coordinator is going to review with the family. So we want to make sure that the family is aware of what these changes are, and it doesn't come to a surprise when we are reviewing with the families. And then just making sure that all of those areas are filled out. So what the service is, whether it's ITDS, whether it's a consult, we are filling out the frequency. So how often is it going to be happening? The intensity, how long are these sessions going to take place for? And then the location as well.
Sorry,
No, go ahead.
a little obvious question, but just to be sure.
Of
I
course.
have a kid that sometimes is in grandma house, sometimes is in daycare.
Mm-hmm.
I put both locations.
Yes, I would put both. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Of course. And one thing that I did forget to add in here, we talked about increasing those existing ITDS services. We would need that recommendation, increase to recommend services form. However, if we are going from just ITDS to now we're going to be adding a consult, maybe we feel like we need support in speech, just add it into the DAYC report. And then when you are emailing it over to the service coordinator or your agency, specify in the email, like, hey, I added a speech consult just to get more support with that communication, just so that they make sure to add it in. But if we are adding something that wasn't on there previously, we don't need to fill out the form. And same with removing as well. If we no longer need a consult, we can also just make a note in the email that we're going to be removing it. All right, so now we're going to talk about eligibility. So section 7, which is this area right here. All right, so making sure that we are only checking off one of those boxes. So whether the child is qualifying based on an established condition or the scores, they are qualifying or they're not qualifying, or they are qualifying on clinical opinion. So only one of those boxes should be filled out. making sure that we are looking at those scores carefully. So if the scores are low enough for them to qualify, we don't need to use clinical opinion, and vice versa. If the scores are not low enough for them to qualify, then and we think that they should still have services, then we would qualify based on clinical opinion. So really looking carefully at your scores and selecting the correct box based on the child scores. So if the scores clearly support eligibility, we don't need to write a justification of why we want to continue with services. We don't need to write a summary on progress. That's not needed. If there's something important that you want to share with the service coordinator, you can add it into your email when you are submitting your DAYC report to the service coordinator or to your agency lead, but it's not needed. There's no area in the DAYC report. You can kind of incorporate that within those observations that you're seeing, that section 3. If we are using clinical opinion, making sure that we are providing a clear, individualized justification in your own words. So use your observations. What is it that you're seeing in session, or maybe what you're not seeing in sessions? You can incorporate maybe medical history or any other information that's going to support your decision for us to move forward with services using clinical opinion. So instead of saying, he's not talking, elaborate a little bit more. Johnny was observed to grab his caregiver's hand and guide him to the kitchen, but he is not pointing, he is not imitating words, he's not, using simple words to ask for things that he wants. So again, in your own words, providing those examples of why it is that we should be continuing with services. Again, it doesn't have to be a long paragraph, but just enough to share with us why it is that we are going to continue with those services. All right, so now let's talk about section 8, which is the acknowledgement and the signatures, which is this area right here. All right. So when we are all done with our DAYC report, we want to make sure that we are taking the time and sitting with the caregivers and going over it, going over all of these areas with them, especially when it comes to those observations, those recommendations, all of that, the outcome. We want to make sure that the parent is in agreement with all of this. So when we do that, the parent is going to be signing to say that we have reviewed it with them and that they agree what is on the DAYC report. If we are not able to have them physically sign, maybe we don't have a printer, or we weren't able to meet with them in person, we went over it through the phone or through like a Zoom call or something like that, we can send them a text message that is going to say like, hi, just a reminder, today on this date, I went over the DAYC report for Johnny. Please respond to this email saying that you have acknowledged it. On the bottom of your DAYC report in red, there are little blurbs that you could just copy and paste them into an email or into a text message to make it easier for you. But once the parent responds saying like, yes, I agree, or yes, we went over it, take a screenshot of that and you can attach it with your DAYC report, and that'll be like if they were signing it for you, if we're not able to have them physically sign the document. When services are provided at daycare, I know sometimes it gets a little bit tough because again, we're not seeing the parent. So, working to schedule at least one of those sessions per quarter with the caregiver or the parent, not just the daycare staff. We have enough time, hopefully, to prepare them. So letting them know like, hey, in 3 months, I'm going to need you to be in one of these sessions because we're going to be completing the DAYC and I need to go over that with you. I think if we give parents enough time, a couple of months in advance or a couple of weeks in advance, hopefully they're able to move their schedule around and hopefully attend one of those sessions. So again, using that opportunity to capture that signature. I have also heard of of some providers who go over the report with the family, through the phone, or they email it to them, and then they leave the paper at the daycare. So when the family goes to pick up the child, they sign it there. That's another alternative. So really just problem solving, trying to find what works best for us to make sure to capture that signature. If you submit a DAYC report and it does not have the signature, it's going to be sent back. So we really want to make sure that we are submitting your signatures. That way we're not having to follow up with you and there is no delay to the services. So just please finding those ways that we can get those signatures from the caregivers. All right, so resources and support. Like I was mentioning earlier, Paola and I have been meeting with some of you to review the DAYC reports and just offer that individualized feedback. If we reach out to you, please respond promptly so that we can offer the support. These meetings are, to provide you with that support, to provide you with that feedback, just to get that collaborative, you know, feedback, whether it's for us to provide you with information or for you to provide us with information as well. There's nothing bad about these meetings. You're not in trouble if we email you. We enjoy these meetings because I feel like everyone leaves the meetings learning something new. Oh no, I don't know what's happened to my screen. There we go. So again, if we reach out to you, don't be scared. You're not in trouble. We really just want to meet to provide you with that feedback. And then we are also here to help. So if at any point you have any questions, please don't feel bad to reach out to us. Feel free. Or if we provide you with feedback and you want to have us review it before you submit it to the service coordinator or your agency, we can definitely do that. Or maybe even after today, if you start working on a DAYC report and you're like, oh, I don't know if this is what Stephanie was talking about, feel free to reach out to us and we can take some time to review it with you or just to kind of go over things with you again. But we are here to help. And lastly, we do have some training videos up on our YouTube page. We have training videos on how to implement the DAYC, on some tips and tricks on how to score. And then every time that we have these refresher meetings, I am recording them and I am uploading them up onto our YouTube channel, just in case you weren't able to attend, or if there was something that maybe you missed and you want to go back and listen to it again or review it in the future, you definitely can. So I definitely encourage you all to take some time and look at the YouTube video because there are some really good videos and helpful information in there as well. And then also our quarterly refresher meetings. So we are going to be hosting these meetings every 3 months. We take into consideration feedback that we're providing or questions that we may get. That way we can share it to everybody in these meetings. But the next meeting will be scheduled around January of 2026. So just mark your calendars. I typically start sending an invite about a month prior, just to kind of give everybody enough time to move their schedule around to attend. So I thank you for being here and just keep an eye out around December for that invitation. And lastly, any questions that you may have or any tips or tricks that you want to share with others?
No sean tímidas. Questions.
No, the only thing that I want to ask for is like after the meeting, if I can get the update format for the report, I'll have
Oh,
to
okay.
have to send the email to you or to Paola in order to get the last.
The updated report, the template?
Yeah.
I can
Yeah,
send it to you. Yes.
I have I need to have the format in order to complete it.
Okay. Yeah, I
Thank you
can
so much.
send that over.
Thank you so much.
I have a question, please.
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, I'm back and forth here. When the outcome is, I have a one case that the outcome, I see that never fix it. I mean, it was a global outcome. So now when I have the evaluation this week, I'm gonna say no needed. So I'm gonna implement the new outcome with the padding, no? But I can click on no needed, no?
Yes, I would do that if it's one that's going to need a lot of changes to it. I would just check off no longer needed and now introduce new outcomes that are measurable and functional and focus on those areas of delay.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions? Bueno, I'm gonna ask, you know that I ask questions. What are the takeaways? What are you like gonna do different from the information you got today? Or what are you gonna make sure to do?
I haven't done one yet because I'm fairly new, but I do like the making it your own words so that the report is specific to each child.
Yes.
So that when anybody who reads it, they know who it's about, specifically what that child can and cannot do. I like that. So I'm not sure how
Yes.
it was before, but I like that.
Yes, and that's one of
Mhm.
the biggest parts here, and one of the things that we stress a lot, because we don't want transfers from the DAYC report to the I mean to the from the DAYC assessment to the DAYC report, like, you know, items by items, because that doesn't tell you much about the child. You really want to make sure that you're personalizing it to the child, and that, you know, if I read it, that I don't know the child, I have a clear understanding of what that child is doing. So, and that goes for everything that we do here in early steps, like progress notes and all those things. It has to be written in a way that's family friendly, but also that somebody that's going to read it can tell, you know, okay, this is what this child is doing. These are these skills that he's demonstrating at this time. These are the concerns that we have with this child, so that anybody could understand. So yes, that's a great takeaway from this one. Anything else? How about the outcomes?
About
Because I know the outcomes is a biggie.
about the recommendations, I feel like finally we can talk. Like before, like you cannot say anything because I don't know, you were scared. I don't know. It was like, and you know that the kid needs is more speech, but like when you say recommendation, what we have to consider. So like, because I know that early step, for instance, do not approve OT. So like sometimes they put in the IFSP under your insurance. So if I'm gonna go and recommend, then it's gonna be then fighting with you. So I don't know how to handle that. So like
Okay,
how you
Mhm.
want us to do it.
and that's a great question, right? Because
That's really
yes, that's a great question, because there's a so if right, you feel, if the one thing too is that the child is not receiving these services privately, right? Because if the child's receiving the services privately, right, OT or speech, there's, you know, we don't want to duplicate those services, because, you know, no, we're not going to do that. Now, if they're not getting it, and let's say, for example, there's a child that it's super, that has a lot of sensory issues, you know, and there are a lot of difficulties, and you feel that this child should be able to, or should benefit from an occupational therapy evaluation through our program, you can add that there. Now, when that goes to the service coordinator, they're going to, you know, first of all, you can add it if there's an outcome. If there's not an outcome that addresses that part, you're not going to be able to add it. Now, you can add it. Now, it has to go to the service coordinator, to the services that we have, to see if it could be included. But you can add it there. That's your report. Then this report is reviewed, and then it's transferred to the IFSP, to the actual IFSP document. But you can add it there. It's not that you cannot add it. Now, what you would say to the caregiver is, I'm going to add this to see if it's a possibility. Not that you're adding it there and it's going to happen, right? Because we don't know yet. It has to go through a process. But you can add it there. The same thing for the consults, and even removing consults, because we've seen, I get it, because before we had this DAYC report, what you guys did was the DPIYC report, and you didn't have to do anything with the services. That wasn't something that you talk about or you touch or nothing. That was something that was discussed with the service coordinator and the family, and you had nothing to do with it. Here, you are putting your recommendations, but those are just that, recommendations, right? You're gonna put recommendations there that of services that you feel might benefit that family from the program. Not, you're not gonna put anything, okay, you know, like OT through your insurance outside of early steps. No, that doesn't go there. It's things that are gonna happen through early steps. Okay.
And, and another question, I noticed, I don't know, I was 1 year out on maternity leave, so I'm coming back, and I noticed a lot of kids I don't know. Tell me how is the procedure now because everything changed. When a kid have an M shot, it's because they suspected they could, or you do the M shot for everybody. So
It's done for everybody who's 16 months and over, 16 to 30 months, right, Stephanie?
Yes.
how many
Yeah.
months? 16.
Everybody gets an M shot if they're 16 to 30 months.
Okay, 16. Okay, and but because you suspected that he could be autistic.
No, not because you're suspecting. Everybody, if you suspect or not, it doesn't matter. If you fall in that age range of 16 months to 30 months, you're getting an MCHAT.
When I read the IFSP with the family, I always look for if you send it to a neurologist or stuff like that. But I noticed that some kids now you don't recommend neurologists, and they really are in the spectrum. So like I have like 2 cases that they don't say anything about it, but I don't know if because they're little. So like, well,
You
so I
have
don't
to
know.
see. You have to see. Maybe did they do an MCHAT on that child?
No.
Okay,
Mhm.
so maybe
That's the
it's
thing.
because of the age, right? That it
Okay.
wasn't there. However, the evaluators, and Stephanie, please jump in. The evaluators are going to recommend follow-ups if they're seeing something that they're concerned with, and it's going to be written there, or it's going to be written, where the signature of the evaluators are, like on the top part of that, if they're recommending anything else. Now, you have to remember that we're seeing these kids for a very short period of time. And a lot
I
of the
know.
information that we get is through parent report. Okay. So
I noticed that. And this one, for instance, this one is like a little denial of everything, like, but the school and everybody is like, but is he is autistic or not? I don't know. The FSP doesn't say anything. I don't know anything. O sea,
right,
like,
and those things, I mean, of course, we don't diagnose, you don't diagnose,
no.
but those are things that you can bring up to the family and say, listen, I'm, seeing these concerns. I suggest, right, that you follow up with your pediatrician to see if he needs to, see a neurologist for further evaluation.
That's what happened. My situation was exactly that. The school is telling me I see it, but I say, bueno, if I go to the parents, I need to be backed up because I don't want to be in trouble. So when I see the FSP, nothing about neurologists, nothing about MSHAT. So I say, I don't want to touch the door.
No, but
Because
but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, Gabby. You, based on your observations of what the school is saying, and you can say even, and you can, and my suggestion would be to write it, like when you're discussing with the family, put it in your progress note that you discuss that with the family, because you're just saying based on your observations and what you see, what would benefit that family. If they do it or not do it, that's on them. But if you're seeing something, you should feel comfortable enough to say it, right, in a respectful way. You don't have to have it written on the IFSP. Maybe in that case, for whatever reason, at that point in time and during the evaluation, we don't know what was going on
or the
during the
parent report.
evaluation.
Sometimes the parents are biased, like
Right,
they're
right.
biased.
And also remember that with the MCHAT is parent report. It's not what we see. It's parent report. So sometimes the MCHAT might show a low risk and we're like, oh my God, there's a high risk, but the parents, are on denial. And still we will put on that report, even though there's a low risk according to the MCHAT, there are some concerns regarding this and that. And therefore, you should consider having a follow-up evaluation or talk to the pediatrician so the child could be referred to a neurologist for further testing, things
So
like that.
I
And
put it, where can I put it? In the progress note?
put it in the progress note. Yeah, put it in the progress note. Like when you have that discussion with the family, make a note and say, it was discussed with the family that there are some concerns, and so that you have that documented, right? So that nobody can say, oh, nobody said anything to me regarding this.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to add to that, if you want something else to kind of back it up as well, you can use the DAYC report scores as well. So when you're reporting with the family and you're showing them that visual, maybe the scores are low or there's several areas of delays, and you can say like, hey, because we're seeing these several areas of delays, I think it's a good, recommendation for you to follow up with the neurologist, just because we have these areas of delay, for them to take a better look and see, what it is that's causing it. So you can also use that to back it up as well. So it's not just coming from you, but you also have, that data to show where that recommendation is also coming from.
Okay.
Yeah. And then one other thing too, with the outcomes, remember, right? I know that you guys might have done it yet already, or might not have done it yet, because I think that providers are due to do this by February, but don't quote me on that because I don't know if it's January or February of next year. But in train, there's a training about functional outcomes that all providers have to do, right? And you can reach out to your agency because they have the information. Because right now we are working, right? What we want is to make sure that the outcomes that we're developing with the family are functional and measurable, right? So that's one of the things that we have had to address a little bit more with providers, taking into consideration only because we know that some of the initial IFSPs that you have received may not have a functional outcome, because we as a program too with our evaluators, we're working on that to make sure that the outcomes are functional and measurable. Okay, so one of the things that we have identified or found, right, is that, for instance, you're doing an annual, right? So you're doing an annual, the initial IFSP was a year ago, right? So it might have had an outcome such as for the child to use words to communicate his wants and needs, right? That might have been that outcome. And then when you're doing the annual, you're like, well, we're making progress, but we're not quite there yet. And then you leave that same outcome, right? Because that's the instruction. If you're gonna put making progress, you're gonna leave the same outcome. But the thing is that outcome initially wasn't functional. So what you're gonna have to do there is to check off, let's make adjustments and make it functional, okay? And
To
adjust it
lower
a little
down
bit
the
to make
goal.
it functional.
To lower down or up, sorry, to lower down the goal. Maybe it's too far
Mhm.
away. So maybe put
Mhm.
something that in 3 months or 6 months would be achievable.
Right,
Mhm.
right. So like thank you, Stephanie. She put it there in the chat. So it's basically, so let's say and let's use that example because that example is very, very common, okay? The FSP outcome was for the child to use words to communicate his wants and needs. And still, now that you're doing your review, that's still what the family wants, right? For the child, because maybe the child is using a couple of words, or maybe the child is still imitating but not using words, but that outcome is not measurable, because how many words, like what do you mean, right? We can be working on this outcome for the 3 years that the child is in the program. So what you're going to do is, yes, you're gonna keep working on that, but you have to adjust it to make it functional and make it measurable, okay? So it would be something like, for fulanito to use words spontaneously, right? To request what he wants to eat and what he wants to play with, and when he wants more of something during his daily activities at his home. So things like that it makes it more functional and measurable. Okay. So take that into consideration, because that's one of the things that we've identified, and we get it. You're getting that from us, but that was a long time ago, because that was like a year ago. But moving forward, you should be receiving IFSPs, right, with functional outcomes, right, that are functional. And you should also be receiving IFSPs that are having, if they have an outcome that it's not combined, let's say they're not combining motor and communication on that same outcome. If you get an initial IFSP right now that it says for the child to use words and walk independently, please let me know, or let Stephanie know, and send it back to us so we can, make sure that we address it. Because like we're telling you, we're expecting of you to break those things up, because if it's different areas, it's different outcomes. That is the same expectation from our team as well. Okay, so if you're seeing that, let us know, because we will address it. Okay.
Yeah, I noticed that difference on new IFSPs, but I noticed also that you put the outcome and you also put, okay, my expectation is to see the child using the word, I don't know, twice a day. So you put like, okay, this is the outcome and what I will see, like how I know it's
It's
working.
gonna work, right?
So
Right. So kind of like
I
to be
noticed
able to measure to see if we're gonna get there, right? Because
So
if we don't have a measurement, then
okay.
how are we gonna know, right?
Okay,
That
so if I see that outcome like that with a measure, like a different narration, because I notice it's not it's completely different that I used to read before long ago. So those new outcomes are the ones that we wanna expect and maybe we learn from the new ones.
exactly.
So
Yeah.
to put the outcome and what we will see when the child
Right.
is
Yes.
doing that. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that you mentioned and learning from those, right? Because when you're getting these outcomes, or these IFSPs, take a look at those strategies and start creating like strategy lists for yourself. That way, when you start working on, your DAYC reports, you can pull from that list to update your strategies, or you can pull from that list and look at those outcomes as well. Of course, the outcome is going to have to be modified to be specific for that child. But using them as examples for when you create your own outcomes or for when you create your own strategies, you can reference what is being provided in these initial IFSPs as well.
I have a question. You guys can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. It's in reference to the outcome. What I'm going to do is, this is a new child that I received, and the outcome got my attention because it was a little different for me. So I didn't take the outcome training yet. So I just want to make clear of that. But I want you to hear what I'm going to read, and maybe after that I will ask my question.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to use Johnny again because Johnny has been going from the beginning. So
Okay.
okay. Parent would like for Johnny to start to communicate his wants and needs and be able to respond to his name and follow simple commands. During mealtime and play activities, Johnny will begin to use gestures like more or all done to let her family know that his wants and needs. Okay, so this part is the one that is new to me. We will know he's making progress when Johnny pairs reaching gestures and eye gaze to request an item, begins to respond to his name, and imitates some environmental sounds every day throughout his routines. So that second part to me is new. It was a little, that's my question. Why that second part is.
It is a little, the thing is that it's more specific now, right? It's not too broad, it's a lot more specific, and it's talking, and when you do that training, Nuis, it's gonna talk about that because it divides it in, and Stephanie can jump in. I'm gonna find a document that has that explanation of the parts of what an outcome needs to have, right? Because the thing about the outcome is that it has to have like those conditions and how will we know that it is achieved. So but Stephanie, jump in so I can find that
So it's
document for
new.
Luis.
The point is new, yeah? That's
Ye-
Yes,
something new.
because
Yes.
it is part of that training, and it's part of a way to make sure that we are making those outcomes functional and measurable. But like Dalila was saying earlier, those are good examples too for you guys when you're doing your periodics and your annuals, to make sure that you're incorporating those things in those outcomes when you're doing it with the families. Okay, but I'm gonna pull something up. Just give me 1 minute.
I have an example,
find it.
Paola, if you want me to share it.
You have what?
Yeah.
Do it. Yeah. Yes.
Is this the one? Yeah.
Yep. So part of that training, right, that you guys are going to do in train, you see how it's there. It breaks it down because it has to have the child skill, right? And child skill here is that Francisco will drink from a cup without a lid with support from the caregiver. So we think about before we would leave it just like that. That would be our outcome. That's it, right? Francisco will drink from a cup without a lid, with support from the caregiver. That would be it. But now with the training that we're getting from the state, it's saying, okay, besides that, it has to include a couple other things. So the family routines, conditions, and criteria. So here, in which routines, basically, like, during family meals, at homes and at restaurants, because typically that's where he'll use a cup, right? The conditions is that it's going to be a cup without a lid, right? And it's going to be with that caregiver support. And the criteria is that when he can do this during most meals or snacks each day for at least 2 weeks, right? So in a period of 2 weeks, when he's doing this, most of the time during those days, then we will know that we have reached this. So basically putting something, this is the expectation. This is when we will know that we can move to something else because he got to this place. So those, I know it's a little bit, different parts, but, and when you get the training, you'll get more examples, right? But like I said, use those, what I would do, Luis, I would, maybe write those outcomes and have them like in a separate page, just so that you can have those examples handy when you're doing like periodics and annuals and having to do this DAYC reports with the families where you are creating the outcomes with them, to make sure that you have those components in there. And it's not going to be perfect, right? But little by little, as you do it, then it's going to be easier to do, because at the beginning, even for us here at the office and at the evaluation team, it was a challenge because it was not the way we used to do things. Okay. So but yes, that's the way that we are expected to develop the outcomes with the families. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, we just have to take the train.
Yeah, and little by little, remember, we don't expect this to be perfect, right? The good thing is that, feel free to reach out to Stephanie or myself if you have questions, right? If you want feedback on something, we're available to support you. We appreciate that you come into this training to further your understanding on these topics and stuff like that. And feel free. I mean, our goal is that we are able to support you with all the information that you need, and that you feel that you can reach out to us if you need that further assistance, okay? Because that's what we want, you to be successful, and we want our program to be successful. And the only way we can do this is working together, all right?
Okay.
So yeah, that's it. I'm sorry, I just talked too much.
Those were all really great questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Of course. Any other questions?
So I have the list, Stephanie. So I guess you'll send them, because I know a lot of people wanted the recent DAYC report to make sure they have the correct one. So we'll make sure it gets to you, okay?
Yes, I will be, and for attending today, if you were here for the entire session, you are receiving a certificate. So I send all of those certificates over to your agency leads. So I will also send them the updated DAYC report as well, so that they can also have it.
Perfect.
Thank you, Cindy.
Oh, yes. Okay, so espérate, let me see, because I see a message here.
I will get it for you directly, the new form.
Okay, got it.
What was that? I'm sorry, Carolina?
No, I will say, like, I get it from my agency, or I will get it for you directly, the new format.
Is there anybody else that needs that updated template?
We can send it, Stephanie. What I'll do is I'll get the emails of them, because I have the majority of them. So we'll get them. Okay. And we'll send them directly to them. We can send it to the agency, but we'll send them directly to them too.
Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
everyone.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you very much.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for
Bye-bye.
coming.
Bye. Thank you.